What if you could start investing in real estate without being a landlord, without fixing toilets, and without tens of thousands of dollars up front? Real estate isn't just for the wealthy, it's for the wise. Today, we're unlocking the power of REITs, real estate investment trusts, and how they can give you a pathway to passive income, financial freedom, and legacy building. Stick around.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or maybe it's evening. It doesn't really matter what time it is, and it doesn't even matter where you are. We want to welcome you to Wholeness Wednesdays. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and join our host, Beatrice Hutchison, as we explore and experience our journey to complete wholeness.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Completely Wholeness Wednesdays. I am your host, Beatrice Hutchison, and we are here again on the channel where we talk about it all. We talk about freedom financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so today, our focus is on the financial wholeness aspect of it, because we are in the month of July, and July's theme is independence. So this is our Independence Month. So we are talking about financial independence in the month of July. So we're talking about creative ways to be able to become financially well and financially whole. And so last week, if you were able to tune in, we talked about real estate, and we talked about how that could be a pathway to wealth. And so today I wanted to come back and just talk to you from one aspect of what we mentioned last week. The focus last week was really more so on short-term real estate, right? And how you could have that cash flow coming in. But I mentioned REITs very shortly, right? And so I want to focus today's episode on REITs so that you understand the power of a REIT. Today's title is Freedom in Real Estate: How REITs Can Help You Build Wealth Without Buying a Property. So let's talk about it. Let's dive in and let's break it down. So first, let's talk about what is a REIT? What is it? Why is it important? And why is it so powerful? So what is a REIT? A REIT, or Real Estate Investment Trust, it was created in 1960 by Congress, and the whole purpose of the creation of the REIT was to give Americans access, or the benefit of being able to invest into income producing real estate. And so that was the purpose of it. However, it wasn't as popular, not as many knew about it. But nowadays, we're hearing more and more about REITs, and you have more and more people investing into it. And so a REIT overall, or ultimately, is a company that owns, operates, or finances income producing real estate. And so it's modeled after the mutual funds, and they historically have provided investors with regular income streams, with diversification, with long-term capital appreciation. So it has proven over the years to be a lucrative stream of income, right? We're always talking about additional streams of income here. And so you can invest in a REIT through the stock market, just like you would buy shares in any other company. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. And so, but it's important that we understand that the purpose for which it was created was to really give us an opportunity or a benefit to be able to own some shares in valuable real estate. And so, since it's there for us, why not take advantage of it, right? Because it really will give us access to dividend based income, right? And also total returns. And so that's very important, right? We're talking about financial independence today, right? And so REITs allow anyone to invest in portfolios of real estate assets the same way that you would invest in other industries, right? So you can purchase through the purchase of an individual company stock, or through a mutual fund, or an ETF, right? An exchange traded fund. So you can, by all of those avenues, are you able to have access to REITs. And so REIT stakeholders earn a share of the income that's produced. So without having to go out and buy and manage or finance property themselves, but they do that through the vehicle of the REIT. And so let's talk briefly about the different types of REITs that there are. So first you have the public REIT, and so that is registered with the SEC, and it trades on the National Stock Exchange, right? But then you also have the public non-listed REIT, and so this one is considered, the acronym for it is PNLR, and this is registered with the SEC, but it does not do trade on the national stock exchanges. And so with this one, the liquidity options vary and they have a bit more limitations. And then lastly, you have the private REIT, which is a real estate fund. REITs, they are privately owned, right? Real estate funds or companies that are exempt from the SEC registration and whose shares do not trade on the national stock exchanges. So the private REITs generally can be sold only to institutional investors, right? A lot more restrictions there. And so, two main categories of REITs in terms of investments they pursue are equity REITs and mortgage REITs, commonly known as the M REITs, right? So equity REITs generate income through the collection of rent on, from the sale of the properties they own for the long term, right? So on properties that are owned, there are there are rents that are received, right? Or there are properties that are sold. And from the income that is generated from that long term property that they have is what the REITs, so that's where the income is generated from, right? And so, and then you get a portion of that through dividends. And then mortgage REITs, the M REITs, they invest in mortgages, right? Or mortgage securities that are tied to commercial and residential properties. And so whereas the REIT, the general REIT, right, is more so on the property, the income that is generated through the property, the M REIT, the mortgage REIT, is through the income or that is received through the funding, right, of the property. So not on the property itself, but the funding that is given to the property, right, in commercial or residential. And so what types of properties do REITs own? And so today there are a wide scope of real estate property types, from things that are more traditional like offices, residential, and lodging, and retail, right, to digital economy sectors that include logistics and digital centers, even land and cell towers, right? So there's a huge or large variety of different properties that make up the REIT. So, in total, REITs of all types collectively own more than $4 trillion in gross assets across the U.S., with public REITs owning approximately 2.5 trillion of that in assets. The United States listed REITs have an equity market capitalization of more than $1.3 trillion. So, as you can see, this is very lucrative. There is a lot of funding that is available or that goes into this, right? And so, U.S. public REITs own an estimated of 580,000 properties and 15 million acres of timberland across the United States, right? So that's just the land, the acreage that it also owns that doesn't necessarily have properties on it. So next, let's talk about how do REITs make their money, right? And so I mentioned that a little bit earlier briefly, but most of them operate along, they have a very simple process or business model that they follow. So for the REITs, they lease space, right? Or they collect rent on the space, whichever real estate that they own. And then the company generates an income, which is then paid out to the shareholders in the form of dividends. And so REITs must pay. They're obligated by Congress, right, to be able to pay at least 90% of their taxable income to shareholders. That's us. And most pay up to 100%. And so, in turn, shareholders pay income on the taxes on the dividends that they receive. So now the REITs, the mortgage REITs, they don't own the actual property, right? So instead, they finance the real estate and then they earn income from the interest on those investments, right? So the interest from the mortgage is where they earn their income. So now let's talk about why REITs matter for independence. Because if we're talking about financial independence, how can they help us get there? And so some of the things that we can think about is that there is no property management, right? So how these are the ways that it benefits us or can benefit us is that we there is no property management that's required, right? Because there's no physical property that you own and are managing. There is a low entry cost, right, to be able to get into this, and there are regular dividend income payments that are paid out to you. You are able to diversify your portfolio, and it just gives you the flexibility that you need as opposed to not having or being obligated to a physical property. And so, according to NAREIT, right, and we're going to look at that a little bit later, the average annual retail for publicly traded equity REITs over the last 20 years is around 9.5%, outperforming many traditional investments. And so there's a quote I want to share with you here. It says, real estate is the number one way to build wealth, but REITs make it accessible to everyone. And that's according to CNBC Finance. And so it is available to everyone because there's a lower entry rate, right? There's a lower cost to be able to enter and partake and take advantage of this wonderful aspect of real estate. Now let's talk about how to get started with REITs. How do you even get started? Where do you even begin? And I'm going to show you where we can look to find certain things, and I'll also share it in the description below. But the first thing we want to consider, we want to look at the types of REITs, right? So we want to look at the equity REITs, right? And so that's the ones that own and manage properties, right? So things like apartments and malls and offices, those sorts of things. And then the mortgage REITs that we talked about, they provide financing for income producing real estate, right? So those are looking more so at the funding aspect of it, where the other one is for the property aspect of it. Or what they call a hybrid REIT, which can be a combination of both, right? And so this is when you're just kind of thinking about which one you would like to invest in. So you would have to just kind of think about the different types and what you would like to get into. And so, when talking about getting started, so you do your homework and your research, of course, to find out which would be the best fit for you. But you would open up a brokerage account, right? And so there are many out there. There is Fidelity. There is Charles Schwab, who used to be TD Ameritrade. There's Robinhood. There are tons of them out there that are brokerage firms where you can go in and create your own brokerage account, and they're relatively easy to be able to set up, very user friendly. And then you want to research the REITs, right? So after you determine, okay, what type of REIT do I want to uh, invest into, then you want to research the REITs, see what's out there, right? So if it's that you want to say invest in commercial properties only, where maybe you are interested in the retail aspect of it, so then you would research the ones with the retail, right? If you're interested in residential, you would look at those, right? So it really depends on what you are would like to invest into. If it doesn't matter to you and you just want to get in there, you can also look up different things, look at the different options that they have available. And they all are at different price points, right? And so, depending on where you are and what you want to do, will help you. That'll also help you to be able to know where to enter. And then something else you want to, even before you do anything, right? Or before you begin to invest, you want to think about assessing your risk tolerance level, right? So what are you comfortable with investing, right? And so some people want to play it very, very conservatively, right? They don't want any risk at all. And so that's that type of person. And so you have to assess where you are. Are you comfortable with a little bit of risk? Are you comfortable with a lot of risk, right? So that's something that you need to assess to find out what you would be comfortable with, so that you can find out what would be the best option for you. And then in reference to your tolerance level, and also with the research, right? We want to research the REITs. We want to not just choose them because they have a good price point, right? Because you'll see, as I'll show you later, some of them are very, very inexpensive, right? Entry point is like almost a little bit under $4, right? So they're very, very affordable. But just because they're less expensive to get in, right? You don't want to just jump in. You don't want to do it just for the cost of the share, but you want to do it because you have done some research, right? So you've done some research on how that particular REIT has been performing, right? So we want to look at that, and I'll show you a place in a bit where you can get some of that information. But you need to do your homework. You need to do your due diligence concerning this, right? And we're not talking about a get rich quick scheme, right? This is not something that you're doing, and it's not like swing trading. It is not like those sorts of things. It is it's a long term investment, and so it's not something that's going to turn over really quickly. But it is something you want to make sure that if you're going to invest into it, it is something that you're able to do, something that you're able to continue to manage, right? And but also that is something that is going to produce some sort of return for you. And so once you assess your risk tolerance level, then you want to think about just starting where you are, right? So it's up to you where you want to start. And so if you need to start off small, that's possible. As I mentioned, they're very, very inexpensive, some of them, most of them. And there are many platforms that allow you to also do what they call fractional shares, right? So even if you can't purchase an entire share of something that you want, you can, purchase fractions of that share, right? So not a whole share. So that is an option that you can get into or opt for. And so it's important that you do your homework, do your due diligence to find out where you best fit or what you would be most comfortable with. And so, a scripture I want to share with you here is the wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down, right? And so that's, whatever increase you get, you gulp it down very quickly, is what the scripture is saying. But I want you to just take from this that a wise person, they store up what they have so that it will not just sustain them, but produce more in the end or when it's most needed. Wise financial planning includes storing and investing rather than consuming everything, like I just said, right? So it's about applying wisdom to what we are doing. So if we want to be financially independent, we have to have wisdom. And so we have to do our homework. We have to learn. We have to expand our knowledge concerning it because we do need wisdom to be able to manage it, right? And in the Bible, King Solomon asked God for wisdom, and he was given not just wisdom, but he was given so many riches. But had he asked for riches and got riches and did not have the wisdom to be able to steward it, then he would have it would have all been wasted, right? And so we know that he was the most wealthy, right, that they spoke about in the Bible. But I share that to you because we need the wisdom to know how to steward it, right? So even if we do something and we make a lot of money, we need to be able to be wise, be a wise steward of that which we have, or else we'll spoil it all. It'll all be wasted and we won't have anything to show for it, right? But we want to build up wealth for our children's children, right? We're not talking about just making ourselves wealthy, but we're talking about creating generational wealth. That is true wealth. Next, let's talk about, just want to do a comparison for you, the REITs versus owning property. And so, what are some of the features here that we see, right? So, when we look at REITs versus owning property, let's compare some of the pieces. So, some of the features. So, if we're talking about it being hands off, right? A REIT is definitely that. Owning a property, a physical property, is not hands off, right? Because unless you have like a property manager that manages your property. But otherwise, if you are the landlord, then you are very much hands on. You are required to do that. Also, if we're looking at another one of the features of these, would be passive income. And so they both have the ability, or they both do provide passive income, right? So they do that. When you're talking about liquidity, right, being able to liquefy it whenever we need to, without any, as quickly as we need to, a REIT does have that. Whereas an actual property, you may not be able to liquefy that as fast, right? Because you would have to put it on the market, you would have to sell it, right? So you would have to go through that whole process, which would happen. It would take time to happen, right? But liquidity, as far as with the REIT, it can. All you have to do is just sell it, right? Or you can just liquefy it. You can cash it out. And so and there may be some, maybe some fees or something that may be attached to it, but you can liquefy it at any time, right? Anytime you would like. So you don't have that restriction there. That's the difference there. And then also thinking about the maintenance of a property, right? And so with the REIT, of course, there's nothing to maintain. It's not the physical property, right? So you don't have to worry about maintenance for it. You don't have to have additional funds that are stored up to maintain the property. But if it is a physical property that you own, then you are required to maintain that property, right? And so those are the differences there. And so a REIT is wonderful to come in at entry level, right? So if you just want to get in there and invest in real estate and you don't have all of the money that is required, right? Or maybe even your credit score is not what it needs to be, or you're not as prepared as you would need to be to purchase a property, right? Then this is a wonderful place to start off with, by starting off with the REITs. And so when we're thinking about affordability with this, many people think that they need, $50,000 or more to get into real estate. And so, and although there are programs out there that could really assist with, first time home buyers programs, other types of programs that could help with funding a property, right? So that would help you, that would aid you in being able to get into a property. There is still some upfront money that's usually required. And then also you need to have something in savings, right? Just for any types of upkeep, any types of bills that you need to be able to manage until, you rent out the property, or until you fix it up and flip it and sell it, whatever it is that you're going to do with the property. But there is some upfront cost that's associated with it, right? But that's not necessarily true when it comes to a REIT. It's still real estate. You're still investing in real estate, but it's just not the physical property. So with a REIT, you can come in as low as $50, or even less, because I've seen some that are even below $5, right? That you could come in at entry level and buy some shares in. But again, and remember, you want to do your homework and your due diligence. You don't want to just, you know, invest in something because you can afford it or because it's inexpensive, right? You want to do your homework around it.
So you go to your search bar and you put in REIT, REIT.com, and it will take you to the REIT website. And so, what NAREIT is the worldwide representative voice for REITs and licensed real estate companies with an interest in U.S. real estate and capital markets. And so, you can navigate this site. You can find out what a REIT is. It'll give you all the information here, and then also how to invest. And it'll give you some other information here to tell you about the REIT performance. It'll also let you know some other statistics, some other data points here. They do have an annual conference. And so this site is a wealth or a plethora of information here that it provides to you to learn more about REITs. And so here, if you want to find out about REITs, you would go here to learn more. And then I'm going to take you into how to invest. And so you'll see here, it will give you some more information on how to invest. I also will give you some more information here. Replace that you see here. You see some hyperlinks in here that will allow you to go in. Also gives you a little video here that you can watch that gives you a little bit more information about what a REIT is. And so in speaking and looking at how to invest, I just want to show you this part. So you can go into investing in REITs, and then you can go down here to give you more information here. Why invest, how to invest, and then it will also give you a directory. And so this is where you want to go when you are looking for REITs and publicly traded real estate companies. Here you would just scroll down a bit to the search engine here. It allows you to put in filters. And so under, if you have a particular name or that you are looking for, a particular company name, you can put in here. If you don't know the company's name and you just generally want to find out some of the companies, so then you can go here, and under the property type, it will has all these different options: gaming, office, industrial, retail, lodging and resorts, residential, timberland, healthcare, self-storage, telecommunications, data center, diversified, specialty, mortgage. And so it has all of those options. And just for the purposes here, I'm going to go into retail. And then you want to make sure that this is on whatever it is that you're looking for, whether it be private, public, or public non-listed. I'm going to leave it on public. And then here you get to choose whether or not you want to include all, which would be United States and international, or choose United States or international. So I'm going to keep it at United States since that's where I am. And then once you hit submit, it's going to filter. And if you scroll down, so it has 26 results. So it provides 26 retail REITs for you to be able to look at. And so you'll see here the company name is at the left, and then the middle, the gray shaded column, is where you'll see the 1 year total return. So it shows over the course of that year what the percentage of the return was. And then to the right in the green, you'll see this is the stock price. And these are for the individual stocks. These are not ETFs, but they are the individual REIT stocks. And so you could go here and you can look at how it performs over the last year. And again, as stated earlier, you want to make sure you do your due diligence. You want to make sure that you look at it for more than a year, right? This gives you a picture for a year, but you want to look at the prior years as well to see how well it performed, right? But you see lots of them here. You can also go up, refine your search. You can change it. I'll go to residential quickly and then submit. And you'll see all of these come up. And so here there are 21 results, right? And so this, you'll see I mentioned about one being under $4. This is Clipper Realty Incorporated is one that's it's residential in Brooklyn. So it had, and this is the cost of the stock. But again, you want to do your due diligence to be able to find out what has been performing well, has a good track record over the years of performing well, particularly not one that is new. If it is new, you want to look at its trajectory, its goals, and any patterns that it's had so far, right? And so, but these are the individual stocks, but you're able to go in here and look at these to see what you might be interested in. Also with healthcare, right? So endless options here, endless options that you could definitely buy into. So again, that site is, it is NAREIT, but you would go into REIT.com, and this gives you lots of wonderful information, and you can really just explore, do some research, find out more information about it, and then that way you'd have the information you need. And so this here is the mutual funds and the ETFs. And so this is the ticker that it shows you, and this is the left is the name of the company, and then this is the ticker that you'd be able to look up for the REITs. And so these are the mutual funds and the ETFs. What I previously showed you is for the individual stocks, the individual REITs. This particular one is for the mutual funds and the ETFs. And so you find that under the investing in REITs, and I went down to REIT funds, right? So these are the funds. All right, happy investing.
Next, let's talk about building generational wealth with REITs, because I mentioned earlier, it's not just about becoming wealthy yourself, right? But it's about developing or building that generational wealth. REITs can be a part of your long term investment plan for your children and your legacy, right? And as I stated, it's not something that will turn around and give you a whole lot of money tomorrow unless you invest a whole lot, right? But it generally is something that is considered a long term investment. So you would include that with your long term investment plan. And so, but it would allow you to build that legacy for your children and for your children's children. And so you can consider using your Roth IRAs or custodial accounts, any type of pension accounts that you may have, even maybe through your employers. You can look to invest in a REIT with those funds. And so you can also look at what they call DRIP, which is reinvestment dividends program or plans. I'm sorry, dividend reinvestment plans. That's what they consider DRIP. But it allows you to whatever dividends you get from the what your investment, you don't necessarily have that paid out to you, but it is reinvested, right? And so it continues to build the amount. It purchases more shares of however you set it up. And so that is something that is also an option. And so you can set that and have it done and have it automated and done every month or every, however, whatever the frequency is that you set up. But you can have that set up and in place, and it can just be building over as the months and the years go by. And so it will help you to build that legacy for your children, that wealth for your family and your generations to come. And so the scripture in Proverbs 13 and 22 says, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about building generational wealth, when we're talking about building that legacy for our children. And so I want, it's very important that you understand that you don't need a six-figure income or a real estate license to invest. You just need a plan. You need faith and a willingness to grow, and also some patience. If this episode has helped you, please share it with someone else that may be looking for smarter and simpler ways to invest in real estate. Because this is certainly a simple way. It is a way to get in at the ground level, right? And it's not a high expense, that is attached to it. It is something you do have to research, right, and learn about, which is no different from any other investment. Because for all of them, you should be doing your research and doing your due diligence. And but you don't you want to make sure that you understand that this is an option, right? And so I always want to bring awareness here. And so this is certainly an option that everyone can do. If I had my way and I could tell each of you what to do, I would say find a REIT to invest in and allow it to give you that those dividends, right? Those dividends are do definitely come in handy. I do have a drip set up with my personal REITs where I have it just go back into, and it just continues to build, right? And so, and I kind of just set it and forget it. I forget it. When I say forget it, I mean I don't go and withdraw that money, right? In my mind, is kind of, that's investments. That's something that you don't even look at. I check in to see where we are to make sure it's producing or is progressing, but I do not go in to pull from it, right? So that's what I mean when I say set it and forget it. But you want to make sure you stay abreast of what's going on with all of anything concerning your finances, right? Your life in general. And so I hope that what you've heard today has been helpful, right? This is certainly something that could help you if you're someone that is interested in investing in real estate. This is a wonderful place to start. And so, as you know, we definitely have shown different places where you can go. So the REIT website, I'm going to also put that down below, as well as the video. If you'd like to just learn a little bit more about REITs, you can also go there. But I'm going to share the REIT website. The REIT.com website is where you can go to find out everything that you would like to know about REITs, right? And you can even search up some as I've shown you, right? So very important or very helpful, useful tool, a great resource if you want to learn more about it. But it is something that you can definitely do. And so I want you to look at your plan, right? Think about your goals. What is it that you are looking to do? And if investing in real estate is one, I encourage you to take advantage of this because it is definitely affordable. It is something that is definitely attainable. And it, of course, would be your first step, right? And if you are someone who already has investments in real estate, you still can invest in a REIT because it is just it's income producing and it provides those dividends. So why not, right? Why not invest in something that can be an additional stream of income to you and can also help you to build wealth and legacy for your family? And so please do make sure that you share, that you like, and so subscribe for more content like this because we're talking about being financially whole, being having financial independence this month, right? But we talk about all of the different topics. And we want you to know that freedom is built one decision at a time, right? It doesn't happen overnight. But we're on this journey, we're on this pathway to freedom, and we're doing it together. And so, thank you so much for watching and being with us this evening. Please do like, share, comment. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. And so, please make sure that you put into action what we talk about, right? I always have a challenge. I always have something to challenge you on. And so I want you to look, if even if you don't want to invest right now, I encourage you to go and look, do some research, find out about it, and at least to do that. And then if you're able to, I certainly encourage, if that's something that's a part of your plan, I certainly encourage that you partake, that you invest, find one that you want to invest in. And so usually if you're trying to play it a little bit more conservatively, you may want to go for the ETF that includes the REIT. You could also do that. But there are so many options out there to you to help you build wealth. And so this is just one that I've talked about to you today. And I hope that it will, that it is something that you decide to take a step towards, because it really, really can help you. So thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate all that we do together. And so, as we often affirm, let us affirm together as we leave. And so, I decree that I will end lack in my life by putting into practice the things that I learn. And I declare that I will not only build wealth for myself, but for my children's children and the generations to come. God bless you, and my prayer is that you will be made whole in every aspect of life. My prayer is that this opens up another avenue to you and that you will seek it out and do what is appropriate for you and your family and whatever's in line with your goals for your life and building wealth. And so my prayer is that you will be completely made whole in your finances and in every aspect of your life. Until we meet again, next time, take care of yourself, mind, body, and soul, and be made whole.
We thank you for sharing this time with us here at Wholeness Wednesdays. Thank you for joining us to explore and experience this journey to complete wholeness. Please remember that we are only an email away. Your questions and input are welcome via bhutch@completelywhole1.com. See you next time here at Wholeness Wednesdays.